Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 1 of the Building Bridges podcast. Today, we'll be talking with my friend Brian, who is in engineering physics with me, and we'll be talking just about the LGBT community in physics and just asking questions about that with his experience with it. And yeah, so Brian, if you want to introduce yourself, just give your name, year, major, whatever other introduction stuff you wanna give.
Hi, I'm Brian Wing. I'm a senior in physics. LAS, good question. What else is there about me that's interesting? I knit.
That's pretty cool. Knitting's fun. Okay, so I guess just to kind of start off, like I mentioned, we're going to be talking about LGBTQ plus diversity in UIUC physics. So I guess overall, when starting to first come into physics, like into your freshman year, did you feel, I guess, welcomed by the physics department with your identity? And if you can kind of maybe just like go in depth of maybe certain experiences that either may or may not have made you feel welcomed with this overall.
Oh, yeah. I was feeling pretty welcomed at the very start of the program. The first week, I made a friend that was a senior who was LGBTQ. Very nice. Helped me get into the program and learn about the different things in physics, as well as just being very open. Also, we have a professor, Tim Stelzer, that just has a rainbow flag mug all the time. So allies, we love that.
Yeah. Actually, I've been in Seltzer's office. I've seen that mug, which I thought was pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good. I think that's really cool that you've had both like faculty and students, like upperclassmen, like automatically kind of take you in and welcome you.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
The
really cool.
physics department also made LGBT corn stickers.
Oh yeah, I remember. Yep, I remember those. That's cool.
Yeah. So they're very actively trying to show diversity and acceptance of different backgrounds and identities within the department.
Yeah, it's
And
cool.
be like, hey, we acknowledge your existence and we love having you here.
Do you maybe have any like specific ways besides like just like conversation that they have outreach LGBTQ students?
I mean, we had SUPs, which was Society of Underrepresented Students. That was a thing. That's no longer a thing just because that died out because it was on Wednesdays. And really no one did the RSO on Wednesdays. So that got absorbed by SWIP, which is Society of Women in Physics, which also has now the underrepresented minorities. And I was secretary for this past semester. And therefore I just went, hey, here's a whole bunch of weird information for everyone in the emails.
Yeah, I remember seeing those emails too. Those are cool. What were like specific topics that you wanted to cover or like you felt were really important to cover in those emails?
In the emails, I put in videos about labels, how some people find power in them, some people find them, what's the word, restrictive. So it says not everyone prefers labels or a specific label, and then some people do because it helps provide the sense of community, and others don't want it because of this expectation of what that group is. So that's one of a set of videos I put into the emails. There's also one on just generally different identities, like what does it mean to be this? Children as LGBT, because those are difficulties that people face. And then there were other ones that had to deal with other identities like disabilities that were also addressed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's pretty cool. That's cool to hear that like you at least and like other people have made it like actively like intentionally trying to reach out to people and trying to cover a lot of like different topics.
For SWIP this next upcoming semester, I'm intersectionality chair.
Oh, really? That's cool.
Which means, yeah, I get to deal with creating events to help others learn about the intersection of identities and how they help form a person, just generally. Ideology, background,
yeah,
trauma.
Yeah, it's cool. That's really cool that like you get the opportunity to do that. And I think that's really a unique position too, to have like an intersectionality chair, because for my education 202 class, which is what this podcast is for, I think it's learning about intersectionality and like more about it. And then like now realizing that there's that like specific position for SWIP to have, and then like for you to be in it is really cool and a unique opportunity. So that's pretty awesome. I like to hear that. Prior to this interview, I had no clue that there could even be something like the intersectionality chair. So I think this is definitely something that other engineering departments can take example with and use for better diversity. Are there any other organizations in physics that maybe have helped you be more either comfortable with your identity or just helped you like outreach to other students that you're a part of? And this could be either like within physics or outside of physics.
Comfortability in physics. I mean, just being comfortable with people in physics. Also SPS, because it's just a place to like gather and socialize and connect with people.
Hmm. SPS that Brian just mentioned stands for Society of Physics Students, which reaches out more just to the general physics student population instead of minorities in physics.
That also helped me gauge the like culture of the like general physics population a little bit more, because it's just like, hey, it's not just mostly women in STEM, it's just kind of everyone. So yeah, that helps with that. In terms of others that have helped me connect with other LGBT people, the Illini Metagamers, a lot of LGBT people are like big fans of games, like very big fans. It might be a bit of escapism. It might be because you can do anything in D&D and no one's gonna judge you. Like, yeah, it lets you things that in D&D that like you can do are, hey, if you're a person who doesn't identify with your name, you can try out a different name and be like, hey, that feels like me.
Would you say that kind of going a little bit of a different path here, would you say that you're more comfortable with your identity here in like being a part of the engineering department or the physics department at UIUC than maybe like in high school or before that?
I mean, with the people around me, generally I'm just like very open about it.
Mhm.
Neither college or high school really had much discrimination against during my time out. High school started in the closet. So like there was that weird transitioning period of identity stuff, which was a thing that just happens. Don't worry about it. But after that, very comfortable.
Gotcha.
And then that went into college, which was just equally comfortable. Maybe a little bit way too comfortable in college.
Yeah, that's okay. You're just being you. It's all good.
You've seen my type of humor. It's kind of a lot.
It's okay. It's what makes Brian Brian, and that is a okay.
I,
That's funny. So you seem like obviously you seem like very comfortable with yourself. You seem very comfortable with just like the way the physics department has, reached out to LGBT students, how they've just been able to make students overall feel more comfortable with their identities and make them feel welcome, which is a great thing. Like obviously not trying to find any like bad things about the physics department, but would you recommend maybe like something maybe like a little bit different that you would want people to know about that like maybe that the physics department could have done better to reach out to LGBT students or in any way like that?
the department really doesn't do specific outreach for LGBTQ plus identities. Normally reaches out generally to most students. So like there's that like little bit of, hey, you could address this a little bit, which would help a lot.
Mhm.
Also, I don't actually know if there's any LGBTQ professors, but that's
Yeah.
also their personal life. So it's like, do I need to know? But also it'd be nice to have someone to talk to about that that's also a professor. So
Hmm.
being able to discuss like being LGBT in academia
Hmm.
and how that affects how they've interacted with getting to where they are.
Gotcha. Yeah.
Because we
Yeah.
have this thing called Tea Times in SWIP that discuss being a woman in STEM and how being a woman has affected their advancements into academia. It'd be nice to have a perspective of LGBT identities in academia.
Mhm. Do you think it would be best just to have like maybe like a separate organization about that, or do you think it would just be like it could be kind of like a tea time thing where like people just talk about it like once or twice a semester?
That I actually don't really know. It would be good for us to do it as a SWIP organization, but also having another organization do it would also be good. It just depends on who wants to pick up the responsibilities and how much they care about it.
Hmm. And do you feel like they care about it, like as of right now?
SWIP, yeah,
Yeah.
I think SWIP does at the current time. We have a new board coming in, so hopefully the same thing is happening for the next semester in year in general.
Mhm.
That is a to be determined.
Yeah, I think that's really cool that like SWIP has kind of been the outlet of like, even though it doesn't explicitly say like LGBT students, like it still reaches out and it still has like people like you, other chair people in the organization that kind of just take the time and intentionality to reach out, which is awesome. And I think that kind of like, because like in my 202 education class, like we learn about this thing called the moral gap, and it's kind of the gap between like what you know needs to be done, but like what do you actually do? So there's like a gap between those two things. And I feel like, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, like it seems like the physics department doesn't have like that much of a gap. Like they know that like there's LGBT students and they reach out to them pretty well, just from my understanding from what you're saying. So that's really good. I think that's really cool that they do that.
Yeah, our department is definitely one of the better ones, I think. We're pretty like progressive and large faculty, generally speaking. And like having that size allows for a lot of different backgrounds and just inclusions of different identities and different stories to tell with each person and also what people enjoy.
Do you feel like there are any like discouragements being in like being a part of the LGBTQ plus community in physics? Like, are there any discouragements that you've seen like either explicitly or implicitly, either with like maybe the curriculum of physics or just with physics organizations in general?
In physics here at U of I, not really. They're very open, they're very accepting in general. In
Mhm.
physics as a whole, for academia, it is controlled by cisgendered straight white men that are on the older side. There is some difficulties with that.
I really like that Brian brings up this point because it shows that even though we can combat different social injustices in academia and in the physics education here, we still need to strive to be better outside of that and to take what we've learned about diversity in education here in physics and take it to the workforce outside so that we can better diversify physics and engineering in general. Yeah, what do you think then like is like a good step towards like diversifying like the physics overall in that sense of like making it not like just like old white cis male, you know what I mean? Like what do you think would be a good step to reach out to students to kind of like diversify that demographic almost?
The diversity is coming in to academia. We just have to make sure they're not discouraged by what is not completely present at the current time. And usually, if you are ready to just get into academia, you'll be ready to face those challenges, but also it's a lot to handle on your own.
Yeah, I think just being intentional and taking the time to like nurture like a good fostering diversity like in the beginning, like when you're in academia, you're learning everything, and then I think that'll really motivate this community specifically, like LGBTQ plus students, to like continue on and like realize that like what they're doing is important. Like they're interested in physics, which is like pretty rare to find, honestly, in my opinion, as a first. But
I
just
mean,
like
yeah,
making sure that they are feeling welcome, feeling comfortable with their identity, and not like having them feeling like they're the only ones going into like the physics workforce like by themselves, like I think that's kind of like one of the scariest things of just, oh, like they're going into the workforce and just like by themselves, but like starting it off and what is it, like in the physics program here at UIUC, like it seems like it's already good, like it already is a really good nurturing like place to
culture.
get them motivated. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, the culture at U of I is pretty good for like the LGBT community in general. Not everyone understands the identities, but they're very comfortable with learning about other identities and accepting them and being very inclusive of them.
Yeah, I think like coming into physics, I've just been exposed to so much like different cultures and identities that like it was definitely like a culture shock at first, just because like I grew up in a very predominantly white, southwest suburb of Chicago, so it it was like not really much diversity there. But like coming here and like being in physics and just getting to know people from different backgrounds, different identities. It's been so, I think it's really cool that like I get to experience that because like I just love like talking to different people, talking to new people. I'm like obviously like you've been an example of that, of just like getting to know people from different backgrounds and different interests and stuff. So it's been cool just to have that. And I think I personally believe that like UIUC physics is doing a great job of fostering that LGBTQ plus community and keeping them motivated to just like make a change after college and just to stick with physics. So I think it's, yeah, I personally think that, and I'm glad that like I'm not seeing it wrong, you know, that you're also agreeing with it.
Yeah, my experience is not able to be applied to everyone, though. This is what I feel and have been exposed to, and it's what I've observed other people experience as a general statement. So, like, there's some merit to it, but also it's not a catch-all, at least. But the physics department generally is trying.
That's good. Yeah, I think like the goal like for this podcast that like me and Danny are trying to push is like obviously like people have different experiences. There's so many different like physics departments out there that may not be fostering this kind of community and may not be caring for their LGBTQ plus students or just like completely ignoring them and just being ignorant, which like is sometimes worse than just explicitly denouncing them. But like I just think that for this episode at least we're trying to just show that like there's such a good example here that other physics programs or like engineering programs or departments and other schools can like hopefully see this and be like, oh, like they're doing pretty good. Like how maybe can we change if we need to foster a good community.
Yeah, DeMarco is very good at listening to students, and he very much cares about the students, which is one thing that helps a lot. We also have a thing called town halls, like which I don't know if you've been to any of them, but it's where a part of the department discusses with students like things that need to be addressed. So like the department is listening to students and what they want to see changed in the department for the better. So that really helps in a lot of things for just the department as general, and keeping it updated and like in touch with students to help them do the best that they can with their education.
No, that's awesome. I think there's so many cool stuff like that. Really good opportunities. So I guess just to kind of wrap it up because we've been talking for a while, which is awesome. What takeaways, however you want to word it, takeaways, examples or something that maybe you want to say to like other engineering departments that aren't maybe as welcoming to LGBTQ plus students or maybe are just struggling to trying to figure out what to do to be more inclusive? Really quick before Brian answers this question, if you are going to take anything from this episode of the podcast, let it be these next 2 minutes when Brian answers this question, because it is honestly the most important thing to take away. And the way he says it and the way he puts it is spoken so well. So, hope you guys enjoy this.
Departments I see with more of a problem when it comes to like issues with accepting different identities are usually ones with a like more not monoculture. It's when the department has like people who all identify very similar to one thing. So there's a lack of diversity in background, differentiating backgrounds that people can learn from and discuss about. Because whenever you have a like single identity that is prevalent over an entire group of people, it's hard to have perspective outside of that group then. And you have to actively search for it or actively be presented to it a lot more often. So a large root of it is, hey, we need to diversify and be more inclusive about people and identities, and also show that this is a safe place to be expressive of who you are as a person. And if people aren't comfortable with that space, it's fine. But if there are some people who will find it comfortable if you try to make it a comfortable place and help inform and give perspective, at least in their own way, if they can. And that's both on the students and the department, and mostly more on the department because students are already dealing with a lot, and having to change a school's culture is not supposed to be their job. The department's culture is more of a like department problem, and they have to address that and fix it to help students get more of their education and learn more about the people that they will be interacting with in everyday life and just their jobs in the future, their friends, just generally humans. And having that sense of empathy comes from just listening to other people's stories and getting more perspective from away from your own views, because sometimes you don't know the difficulties people face. And to hear those stories and hear about what has made another person who they are today is important and can help shape how you interact with people in the future.
That was really good. Thank you. Yeah. No, I think that was very well worded. I think that was a cool message for other programs who maybe don't have this much exposure to this diversity. Yeah, that was very good. Thank you, Brian. Appreciate it. All right. Well, I think that's pretty much all I got. That's all the questions I wanted to ask. Thank you for just being vulnerable, being able to give some good advice, share your experiences with your experience in the LGBT community in physics, because it's been really cool to hear that. It was like uplifting to hear that there's very good steps being taken in the physics department to welcome LGBTQ students and welcome just kind of foster a good community. So thanks, Brian. Very
Sweet.
much appreciated.
Yeah. Thank you for having me.
Of course.
It was enjoyable.
Good. Good, good, good. Thank you guys so much for listening to episode 1 of Building Bridges. We hope that you were able to learn more about LGBT representation in engineering, and you were able to learn from Brian's story and his experiences and use that to better help represent LGBT youth in engineering today. Thank you guys again for listening, and we hope you enjoy the next few episodes.